Hi, and welcome to Strange, where we make sense of the unusual in the Bible. We take difficult passages, phrases, or verses in the Bible that are hard to understand. We interpret them and usually end up with a pretty profound meaning. Today, we're going to tackle kind of an odd thing in the Bible. Here, we're going to talk about and answer our question, what does it mean that Jesus provided the tax payment for Peter and himself through a fish in Matthew 17, 24 through 27? We're going to take a look at this. So if you have a device that you're looking through on Scripture, or maybe you have a Bible close at hand, join us in Matthew chapter 27. We're going to look at, 17, and we're going to look at verses 24 through 27. We're going to start with verse 24. And it says this, when they had come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax came to Peter and said, does your teacher not pay the temple tax? And he said, yes. And when he had come into the house, Jesus anticipated him, saying, what do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers? And Peter said to him, from strangers. And Jesus said to him, then the sons are free. Nevertheless, lest we offend them, go to the sea, cast in a hook, and take the fish that comes up first. When you have opened its mouth, you will find a piece of money. Take that and give it to them for me and for you. So what we have here today is this bizarre encounter. Now, the scribes, Pharisees, and questioning about the teacher, that would be Jesus, and coming up to Peter, the kind of unspoken leader of the 12 disciples. So Peter answers, yes, of course, my teacher pays the temple tax. The temple tax was something that a Jew would pay, 20 and older, years older, would pay. And they would pay a half a shekel per year. So that would be the temple tax that every Jew was required to pay. Now, Jesus' statement is interesting. His statement and explanation of the temple tax is fascinating. That he says, who pays the tax? Do the sons pay, or do strangers pay? And he's referring to how kings would tax people. Would the king's sons pay taxes? Of course not. It would be the citizens. And so what Jesus is saying there is he's saying that I'm the Son of God and I'm exempt from paying the taxes because I am the Son of God. But nevertheless, Peter, lest we offend them, let's go ahead and do this. I think that's interesting. Lest we offend them. And so Jesus went ahead and said, yes, let's pay the temple tax, even though I am exempt from such things, and by connection, you are exempt from such things. So he tells Peter to go in to the sea, throw in a hook, and go and fish out the first fish that you come to. Pull it out, open its mouth, and what you'll find in there is enough to pay the temple tax for both you and me. That's interesting, fascinating here. The Lord asked Peter to do what he has always been doing so well for his livelihood, and that is fish. But he tells him to fish not by net, but by hook. And that means there is a specific fish. Now get this, there's a specific fish that Jesus has in mind that Peter is going to snag on the first try, that when you open its mouth, there will be money in there. Now, this is a crazy way to illustrate, hey, we got to pay our temple tax and we got to do what's right. Is there anything greater in this strange encounter? Yes, there is. In fact, what this demonstrates and illustrates is Jesus' power over nature. Jesus' power over all creation. In fact, if Jesus can command the wind and the waves, if he can uproot a fig tree by just speaking to it, then in fact, Jesus can command creation. And that's in fact what this is illustrating, that Jesus can command creation. And that one singular fish, and I'd like to have a kind of a picture. I mean, every fisherman has a picture of that catch, right? I'd like to see a picture of that catch. Here's the catch on the line that Jesus told me to go in, throw a hook in, and the first fish that comes to the surface, here it is. It's going to pay our temple tax. What does that mean for you and for me? This strange event from the life of and ministry of Jesus here illustrates not only his control over creation, his mastery and lordship over creation, it also says to us is that we live in a world where we need to do what is right in God's sight. We need to do what is right according to our rulers, according to those who rule over us. What is our obligation and duty as citizens? We should do what's right. Can we say, well, we're children of God, and yes, our citizenship is in heaven? That's true. But I think in a greater sense even than what Jesus said, we must say that we are also citizens here. And we must do what's right, lest we offend those around us. Doing what's right meaning paying the tax. Paying the tax. I know we don't want to hear that. And Paul would reiterate this in a secular sense. This is a temple tax that every Jew was required to pay. But Paul would say, to whom taxes is owed, taxes must be paid. So you and I have obligations. And Jesus doesn't skirt those obligations. In fact, he says, this is what we should do. We should do what is right. And that means for you and me that we need to do what's right. It's encouraging to me that in this encounter, there is this supernatural command over creation in order to provide what you need. I think that's interesting. You know, sometimes we think that, Pastor, I don't have these things. I don't really have the means and the resources to do what's right. But I want to say to you, my friends, is that Jesus actually provided for Peter and for himself out of a supernatural act. Do you think he would do anything less for his children? To provide for us what we need in order to meet the obligations that we're called to do what is right. I know we lay at the feet of Jesus our excuses. But here, this weird and strange thing should teach us that when we don't have those means, we should seek a supernatural answer in what God would provide for us. I've heard story after story after story of people seeking God, saying, I'm going to do what's right, and God will provide. And I've heard story after story after story of God providing that which they need. My friend, we don't serve a God that is unaware of the obligations that we have. We don't serve a God that is deaf and dumb to the needs around us and what we need in our life. He just means for us to do what's right in God's eyes. And yes, to meet our obligations as people living in this earth, in our country. So this strange, odd thing actually teaches us quite a bit. That you and I have an obligation to do what's right. And God has the resources to meet our needs, to help us and provide for us when even we can't see how it will happen. I pray that today that you have this kind of perspective. When those obligations come knocking, I pray that God and His provision come answering that knock. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. And I pray that God blesses your heart this next week. We'll see you next time.